Welcome to the show. I'm Chris Graham, Jerry Ratcliffe here for the Jerry Ratcliffe Show, and we're going to catch up on UVA athletics news for the week. And Jerry, I guess we'll start as we have the last few weeks. It's still basketball getting our attention, even though the basketball season's been over for about a month now. Two big bits of news, and then some other follow-ups on the transfer recruiting trail, the prep recruiting trail. But let's start with the announcement by Jordan Minor, the Merrimack power forward, who announced yesterday that he is committed to come to Virginia. So that's a big get for Tony Bennett and company.
Yeah, it was a good deal. They finally got somebody. I know Virginia fans were getting a little antsy that some of these guys that they had reached out to had signed elsewhere, or in the case of Robert Jennings, decided to go back to Texas Tech and with under a new head coach instead of coming here. And even though a lot of people thought he was going to be a guy that would be on Virginia's roster next year. And but Minor, yeah, I think he's a good get. He's a grad transfer. He's 6'8", 240. Was the NEC Player of the Year last year and the Defensive Player of the Year. Averaged 17.5 points a game, almost 10 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 2.6 blocks, shot over 51% from the field. And he's from Merrimack. And again, it's I guess a low minor, mid major, whatever you call it. I don't know what you call
Yeah, they're not quite mid-major, but I don't know what the next term is. Mid-major is more like those middle conferences. They're, no offense, but the NEC is not a mid-major. But we have to come up with a term for that.
I think they're the same conference as Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yes, they were the team. They were the team that actually won the conference, but could not participate in the NCAA tournament because of that weird rule about making the transition from D2 to D1.
Yeah, exactly. So, he sounds like a pretty decent player. He visited here, and apparently, he said he said he was blown away by his visit here because not only did Tony, he said a lot of schools they'll send an Uber or somebody to pick you up at the airport, but apparently Tony Bennett's wife picked him up, which is no surprise to me. She's Laurel's a wonderful human being, and everybody showed him the utmost hospitality while he was here. How could you not like the facilities and all that stuff? And I'm sure he got to meet some of the guys on the team, and I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon or any of the pros were here working out that week. I know Brogdon was here for a day or two shooting with some of the guys. But he wanted to commit to Virginia as soon as he got home, but I think the next day. But he had already committed to fly to Florida Gulf Coast University. I think they made the NCAA this year. Is that right?
I think that's right. It sounds right. Yeah,
I think that was Florida Gulf Coast. And then came home after that visit, and was still had his heart set on Virginia so much that he went ahead and canceled his other scheduled visits to Iowa and Seton Hall. So that shows how impressive that his trip to Virginia was. So I think he's a pretty good addition at that size, Chris, and it looks like he can move around a little bit on both ends of the floor. If he's not a starter, he's certainly going to be a strong contributor.
Yeah, at 6'8", he's a shot blocker as well. He's a motor guy. I looked at his numbers on Synergy, kind of breaking down his offensive game. 80% of his shots, 81.6%, I think, actually, percent of his shots are at the rim. He gets to the rim with impunity, we could say. Doesn't shoot the three, but he seems like a perfect fit for a role in the mover blocker where he sets those screens and kind of gets those pocket passes off when a guard curls off. And the defense's attention is too much on that guard. He's a guy who can really finish at the rim really well. He also, I know Virginia doesn't, push the ball in transition a lot, but I think another indication of his ability to finish the rim. He was a 74% shooter on transition opportunities. He's a guy who can really, you take the ball, take a pass, and do some stuff with it there. So, he might not fit at center, but along with Ryan Dunn and Blake Buchanan, I think all three of those guys are going to give Virginia a lot of minutes at the 4 spot, and maybe some small ball between those 3 guys. 2 guys could play some small ball 5 with the other guys. So I still think that Tony's going to need another big, probably a true center type, a little bit bigger guy, taller guy. But this is a huge. If when I was looking at the list of prospects, just myself, but when the season ended, and we first started hearing about the guys who were available, this was the guy that I thought after I looked at his profile, I thought this was the guy who was the best fit for Virginia.
Yeah, I agree. I liked everything I read about him, and he sounds like a really good kid too. And but you're right. I don't know where that true center is going to come from, because they have Buchanan coming in. He's 6'10", but he seems more like a stretch guy to me from watching him in the All-Star game last week. Maybe he could play center. I'm not sure. He looks like he needs to bulk up a little bit if he's going to do that. There's been some interest in Will Shaver, the former North Carolina big guy who's 6'10", and I guess he would be a center prospect. He's 6'10", 260. I can't imagine him playing anything else. I don't know where they stand with him, but he had expressed some interest in Virginia as well. The other guys they have that I've looked at are mostly smaller guys. RJ Melendez is a guy that they've reached out to from that they played against last season. 6'7" forward, a sophomore guard actually from Illinois. And he's been recruited by at least 24 teams out of the portal. But Virginia got a good look at him in that game last November out in Las Vegas. They also have been talking to, or at least made contact with, another guard, DeMar Langford from Boston College, who they were familiar with, who scored, I think, 12 points against them when BC beat him up in Boston last season when Virginia was ranked number 6 in the country. I don't think he missed a shot in that game, but I think he had a bunch against Wake Forest in the ACC tournament. But those are 2 guys that I know that they've reached out to. I don't see a whole lot of other big guys that they've had much contact with.
Now, I'll skip ahead. We're going to talk about some visits this week. There might be, and he would have to reclassify, and he's talked about reclassifying the class of 2023. But there might be a guy that could fit that bill.
Could be. He's listed as a power forward at 6'10", 200. He's a little light.
Yeah.
But could possibly play that spot. He's played that some in high school, but he seems like he wants to be more of the stretch kind of guy that can shoot some threes as well. He wants to be an NBA player in the worst way. And we're talking about Jaron Stevenson, who visited Virginia on Thursday from Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Seaforth High School down there. He's a 5-star by 247's rankings, a 4-star by all the other services. But he would be, should he reclassify, should he commit to Virginia, and apparently he had a great visit here, he would be the highest ranked player in Virginia history since they've been doing rankings, which was obviously after the Ralph Sampson era, but he's ranked number 12 nationally, Chris, by 247 as overall player in the country and the number one power forward in the country. He has already officially visited Missouri and Georgetown, and he's had unofficial visits to to Carolina and Duke. He likes Arkansas some. He's been offered by NC State, and I don't know if his visit to Virginia yesterday was an official or an unofficial. It didn't say, although he put out a 30-second video clip of him wearing Virginia gear and posing in JPJ, and said he had an amazing visit to Virginia men's hoops. So obviously he was very impressed with what he found here. But well, wow, wouldn't that be something? I mean, to get a guy of his caliber, particularly if he decided to reclassify and commit and be on the roster this fall.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere where he talked about like a 40 to 50% chance. So, 50-50 that he would reclassify. And boy, you get a guy with that talent level. I know it can be hard for guys to get a lot of minutes in Tony Bennett's system as freshmen, but I would think a guy with that skill set would probably be as likely as anyone to get a lot of minutes, starters minutes, and be a featured guy, both offensively and defensively.
Be a pretty nice front court if you had him and Buchanan and Minor filling up those spots. That would be pretty dangerous, I would think.
That would be a pretty deep front court. That would definitely address the need there as far as that goes. While we're on this topic, as we have another big news story we want to talk about too. What about the other recruiting news, both prep recruiting and transfer portal recruiting?
Not a whole lot more. I mean, there's been a few names that have popped up and dangled out there a little bit, but the two latest ones were Melendez and Langford that I mentioned, and Shaver. There's also a kid, Paris Clark, a rising sophomore. No, I'm totally off there. That's one of the female players that committed to Virginia. The McDonald's, she was the McDonald's All-American.
Another McDonald's All-American on that group.
The fourth one that they've gotten. But in terms of the men, I think that pretty much wraps it up for now. Of course, we mentioned Jennings deciding to go back to Texas Tech, and that was prompted by apparently when he found out that the guy that was recruiting him for Virginia was not going to be at Virginia, so he decided that he wasn't going to be at Virginia either. Well,
that's our next news story. You broke this news yesterday. Nice segue there, right? No, you broke this news story yesterday, and I'm still not seeing anyone. I mean, I followed up with hey, I'm hearing the same thing, but we're the only two who have written about it. You broke it Thursday morning. An assistant coach who's moving on to, I guess, greener pastures.
Yeah, Kyle Getter, who has been in the program for 5 years. His first 3 as director of scouting and I guess player development. And then the last 2, he switched with one of the others, Brad Soderberg. They sort of switched positions. Soderberg went to that position and Kyle went to full-time assistant and kind of became Virginia's lead recruiter. I was on the road a lot while Williford and Tony would hold down the fort. Not that all those guys would go out on the road recruiting, but Getter was the guy who spent a lot of the time on the road, and the other guys, Tony and Jason, might come in as the closer, so to speak. But yeah, Getter, it's a nice opportunity. Apparently, his landing spot, we have found out, is Notre Dame, where he has been tagged associate head coach, which would be the second guy that had Virginia roots to hold that position. Anthony Solomon was associate head coach for Mike Bray at Notre Dame past couple of seasons, and Anthony Slow, as we adoringly refer to him as here, was on the Terry Hollins teams back in the early 80s, and he's been a coach all of his life, and was associate head coach up there. In fact, it was his third stint for Bray at Notre Dame. Now Getter is taking that position. Usually when you get the associate head coaching spot, it comes with a raise. I don't know what kind of money he's going to be making at Notre Dame, but it also supposedly kind of sets you up well to help you slot into a head coaching spot down the road, having that associate head coach tag. And I think it also keeps you a little bit more at home and off the road, where you can do more coaching than recruiting as associate head coach. So really good move for Kyle Getter. And Notre Dame should be that should be a pretty strong staff going forward, but a good career move for him. Probably didn't help Virginia very much in the fact that now they have a vacancy and Tony's going to have to fill that spot. But that's where he has moved on to.
And it's a good move. It's an associate head coach job, as you mentioned. It's a stepping stone to being a head coach, and also, I mean, yeah, as you also mentioned, Jerry, all coaches are recruiting during the season, but when he was a guy at Virginia that was always on the road, this gives him a little bit more home stability. He actually gets to be at home a little bit more, in addition to that too, and a healthy raise. I was hearing a number that Anthony Solomon was making $1 million there as the associate head coach, and I'm hearing $800,000 for Getter. So that's a nice bump for him in salary and a role in an ACC school. And there were some folks, Jerry, who suggested that perhaps the way college basketball has been working the last few years, that it wouldn't hurt Tony Bennett to maybe get some new blood, potentially, and this would at least open up an opportunity for someone to come in from outside who maybe can inject some new ideas about, especially offense, to the system. Maybe bring some thoughts from another coaching tree. Perhaps, I know he could just recruit from within and then fill, the position he may promote from a more developmental role into the staff, so that he could go that route too. But this would at least give Tony the opportunity to maybe inject some new thought processes in with a new assistant coach.
Yeah, he has a lot of options, a lot of directions he can go in. Like you said, promote from within. He has a couple of graduate assistants that with Virginia ties that he coached and on the staff already, and also he could go outside. He has a lot of connections in the coaching world, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to be on Tony Bennett's staff and learn what he knows. But yeah, it goes both ways. He could also be open-minded to hearing some new ideas on things as well. And who knows, maybe Anthony Solomon could go from associate head coach at Notre Dame to an assistant coaching role at his alma mater. I mean, he's been around the ACC a long time, and like I said, he knows the state of Virginia. He's a UVA kid, not a kid. He's in his 50s now, I'm sure. But just so many different directions that Tony could go in. It's going to be interesting to follow this coaching search and see who fills that vacancy.
It'd be kind of neat to see it, like what would effectively be a trade, Kyle Getter for Anthony Solomon, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that be something?
It'd be interesting there, yeah.
Solomon's a great guy too. We spent some time with him after Notre Dame's last visit here, Mike Bray's last appearance in Charlottesville. And it was great to spend some time with him. He's always been a great guy to hang out with. And Mike Bray, who told our friend Scott German at a Waffle House recently that they don't come any better than Anthony Solomon that he's as fine a human being as you'll ever run into. So
I know Anthony's looking for he's looking to come back more towards the East Coast and as far as, on the southern part of the East Coast. From what I understand from Anthony, he's had enough of the winters up in South Bend. No more winters up north is basically the message from him. So
I don't know why anybody would want to spend a winter in South Bend.
Kyle Getter just signed on to it. He'll find out.
It's brutal. It is brutal.
That's the word. So, well, that might cover us for the basketball side of things. Let's maybe switch gears a little bit. Football tomorrow, as we're recording this Friday. Tomorrow, Saturday, the spring football game. And a lot of questions about this Virginia team that a lot of probably won't be answered honestly in spring football, especially the quarterback job, just because Jay Woolfolk, who's competing for the starting job, is also the closer on the baseball team, and he won't be playing tomorrow in the spring game. But at least this will end spring practice for Virginia. I guess from what I'm hearing, Jerry, it seems like Coach Elliott, his top assistants, and actually the position coaches as well, feel like here in year two they've got a little bit more buy-in from the guys in terms of what they're being asked to do in terms of the offense, defense, special teams. So maybe some steps forward, maybe some small steps forward for Virginia football this spring.
Yeah, it would seem so. A couple of times I've been over there. A lot of enthusiasm from the players and coaches during the drills and stuff that we've witnessed. And I would think that there's a lot of buy-in. The program, I think, is way behind right now, and it's going to take some time to catch up, and only time will tell how long that's going to take. I think the thing that they've got to solve first is how to put some points on the board, because last year it didn't really matter how good that defense was, which it was pretty good. A lot of times, so a lot of games, they were pretty solid on that side of the ball, but they just couldn't generate any points. Sometimes they were getting some yardage, but nothing to show for it. His system just didn't resonate with Brennan Armstrong's game and some of the wide receivers. Most of those guys are gone now. Sort of starting all over on offense. You got some a pretty healthy backfield of running backs, but an offensive line that's somewhat untested. New offensive line coach, so maybe some new philosophy there with Terry Hefferman coming over from Stanford. But I think Des Kitchens said this week that he didn't blame Virginia fans for being upset with the offense last year. He said he was pissed off.
That's what he said.
to quote him.
Yeah.
And you could tell that the frustration with him and Tony Elliott last year after games when things just did not compute. And there's the varying schools of thought about that. Some people blame Kitchens and blame Tony for forcing a system onto the guys that couldn't adapt. But that's the system that they know, and they couldn't teach the former system. The other school of thought is that Armstrong was in Robert and I's paint by numbers passing system, the air raid offense, which produces numbers but doesn't necessarily produce a lot of success in terms of wins and losses. And we kind of saw that in Armstrong's last productive year here. He had incredible numbers, but Virginia was 6-6. So it didn't compute into wins. And that Armstrong couldn't fit into another system. And there's some people that say, you know, all you got to do is look around when he entered the transfer portal and shopped himself around the country. There were no takers. And where did he end up? At NC State, back with Robert and I. So he may put up some big numbers with NC State, yet to be determined. But that we'll see what happens there. But he's gone. The receivers are gone. I think it's only fair to Jay Woolfolk to there's no way they can make a decision on starting quarterback until training camp. It could be the last week of training camp for all we know, because he's got to get caught up. He's taking mental reps when he can't practice here due to baseball. He'll be able to devote himself fully to football over the summer, I guess, and then into the fall camp. Tony Muskett, hardworking kid, good kid. Obviously has a lot of reps under his belt this spring. I'm anxious to watch him Saturday and see what he can do. We'll find out. I don't know how vanilla they may be. You know how paranoid coaching staffs are with spring games, because not only can people scout them, but they're on TV now. So I'm sure Tennessee and JMU will be have their antennas up, trying to find out everything they can about this offense. So they may, who knows what we're going to see on Saturday, but it will be fun to watch to see how far Muskett has come in this offense, and what this offense might look like as compared to last year when it was brand new and people were just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and you know, if not, here I want to sell this as a positive, I guess. Brennan Armstrong last year had 4 years of tutelage under Robert and I, and you know, to make a change from 4 years under one system to a completely new system can be difficult. All the talk about Muskett is if he ends up being the guy. He played it apparently in a very similar system at Monmouth, and Monmouth, you know, it's an FCS school. You don't think a lot about Monmouth football if you're a Power Five, if you're an ACC Virginia fan. But he was a 3-year starter there. Now he's in 2 of those years were technically in one calendar year. They had the FCS had canceled the 2020 fall because of COVID. They played their 2020 season in the spring of 2021, and Monmouth only played 4 games that year, but he did lead them to the playoffs. In his second year, which was the fall of 2021, they just missed the playoffs. I think he threw for 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions that season. He was injured a few games last season, only played 8 games of the 12. They didn't sniff the playoffs last year, but he put up good numbers again, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, good completion percentages. So he's got experience in the system, and he also doesn't have experience in, Tony Elliott kept talking last year about don't talk about last year, which was the 2021 season for him. Tony Muskett doesn't remember 2021 because he wasn't here then. Jay Woolfolk was here, started a game in 2021, but it'd be easier for a guy like him who only had a year of experience in the Anai system to kind of wash those habits away. So maybe there's something there, the offensive line. To me, Jerry, I want to say it this way. I haven't written this column yet, but I'm thinking of a column where I say, as tough as it was for Virginia to lose Marcus Hagans, for example, and Garrett Touge, who had experience, a track record at Virginia. Maybe, if you're going to change things completely and start from square one, it's probably not bad to get rid of those guys left on their own volition, but to start over with a whole new staff that doesn't have ties to the previous staff, to the previous way of things. So, now that's the case because Hagans and Touge left, and there's really, very little left from 2021. I mean, that's what Tony Elliott wanted, and that's what he's got now. So, now he's really got the tear down complete. He better hurry up though and get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the main concern is how much can you do this year? They've got a pretty challenging schedule. It's not easy. Not a ton of experience. Like you said, we got a lot of running backs, but they've still got to prove that they can put together a reliable running game.
They can't block for themselves.
No, they sure can't. And again, the defense, even though they lost some of their better players to the transfer portal, they still got some talent on that side of the ball and played good football for the most part last year. And they should be fairly solid there again. It's a shame that they have to open up against Tennessee, probably one of the most explosive offenses in the country, or at least expected to be this season. And on the road at that, that could be a harrowing experience. But yeah, who knows what lies ahead for this program, but and how patient the fan base is going to be, because just when it looked like things were starting to maybe solidify a little bit under Bronco, it's a shame that COVID disturbed all that and set them back a little bit. But just when things were starting to get back to some kind of normalcy, bam, the rug's pulled out from under everyone, and they got to start almost from scratch. So it's I don't know. I don't know what kind of fall we're going to see. I'm not expecting a whole lot.
That might be the best course of action for, writers, fans, keep the expectations low and then let them surpass those low expectations. And because that's reality, probably. It's right now, it's hard to imagine 2 or 3 wins with that tough schedule. If the team coalesces the way Tony Elliott, and I'll give him credit, all the coordinators, all the assistant coaches, listening to them all through training camp, they're selling it. They're trying. I wrote a column today where I said I'm almost convinced, based on hearing them all spring, that they're going to win some football games next year. And but I think what fans should hope for as the best case scenario is just being competitive in the games, even the games that they lose. Just going out there, Tennessee and Nashville. Don't get beat 50-something to 10. The NC State game when Robert and I brings Brendan Armstrong on a Friday night in September. Don't let him throw for 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. Make it a game. And if the you don't have to have a glittering record, I don't think, this year. But if they're competitive and they look like they're playing hard, maybe upset somebody they're not supposed to beat, that can give you momentum going into 2024, and that's what they really need out of 2023.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, they don't have to have a winning record to make some strides, but they do need to be competitive, and like you said, carry that momentum into a next year when they can get another recruiting year under their belt, another year of experience in that offense and defense under their belt, and build some chemistry and hopefully some success. But you never know. A lot of times when everybody's working together, you can do some things that you're not supposed to do. So hats off to them. I wish them all the luck in the world, and hope that they can succeed, because it's if there's a football hungry town in the ACC, it's certainly Charlottesville, Virginia.
We've been hungry for 20 years. Yeah, we're ready to eat again, as far as that goes, no doubt. Jerry, you mentioned we talked a little bit about the basketball recruiting news. There was some good news on that front for Virginia, a couple pickups this week. Also, of course, the baseball team continues to roll, 29-4 record now, with a weekend series at home, weather permitting, tonight starting at 6:00 with Pitt coming into town. Jake Geloff has broken the program home run record. Man, I'm giving a lot of things here to talk about. And boy, so there's the spring is looking pretty good for Virginia.
Yeah, no question about it. Geloff and Teal have been amazing on offense. I think I read where Virginia's as the top team batting average in the country, and maybe the number 2 ER is it number 2 ERA?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Um,
And I'm going to interject for a second. Last year Virginia started 26-3, and the second half got off to a bad start with a bad series at Miami. I think Virginia fans had to be looking at this past weekend with Miami, and Virginia won that series, swept the series. In fact, maybe that's payback for last year, and maybe a good start to the momentum for the second half of this year.
Yeah, very well could be. It could be the thing that springboards these guys into a great second half of the season. I mean, when you got the top batting average in the country and number 2 ERA, and you're playing great defense on top of it, it's hard to beat. How you going to beat a team like that? Especially take a series from them.
Yeah.
So yeah, Brian O'Connor's got it going big time. And he's been so positive and energetic from day one this year. It was almost like he knew this was going to happen. I think he really believed that this team had a ton of potential, and obviously it's showing up on the scoreboard.
So that's this weekend. I think it's a scheduled 6:00 starts Friday and Saturday. The 6:00 on Saturday is a change from the original schedule of 4:00. I don't know why they had every year. It seems like there's a home game on the day of the spring football game, and they announce a time and then change it. They ought to just set it in stone at the first and just realize that people want to watch both if they can. But the spring football game's at 2:00, and then I think the kickoff maybe around 2:15 or so. And then the baseball at 6, and then Sunday the baseball at 1. So that's just among the things on grounds. I think there's I can't remember if this is on grounds or not. There's another top 5 men's lacrosse matchup. Who's Virginia playing? Is it?
Are they playing Duke this week?
It's Duke this weekend. Yeah.
Is that here or is that on the road?
That's a good question. I know. I just got the note about the game. Let me look real quick and see.
I'm thinking it's on the road.
Oh, on the road. Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think it is.
I'll look real quick here. But we'll be keeping up with that. Yeah, it's at Duke. It's definitely at Duke. So a fourth, but that's the fourth time in the last 5 weeks that there's a top 5 showdown for Virginia men's lacrosse.
Yeah,
that's a schedule right there. Lars Tiffany is not shying away. I mean, I know some of these are conference games, but some of them were not. Playing Maryland a few weeks ago was not. So that's a battle-tested team already. It's just going to be more so after the Duke game this weekend.
They need to get the Duke monkey off their backs too. That's for sure, because they've lost a ton to the Blue Devils and can't seem to shake that.
Yeah, that's I saw a stat. I'm seeing if I can find it. No, of course I'm trying to look. Oh yeah, let's see. Duke has won 14 of the last 15. Here we go. It was in the notes. I don't know if I'm writing the game notes for Virginia Athletics, I might have left that part out, but they actually did put it in there. 14 of the last 15. I don't even remember the one that Virginia won in the last how many ever years that is. So
yeah, that's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. As good as Virginia has been, national champions several times during that era, not able to overcome Duke, as good as Duke has been too. So that's a heck of a matchup tomorrow down in Durham. So what else, Jerry, as we're maybe getting ready to wrap up the show here, anything else that comes to mind?
Nothing off the top of my head, Chris. I think we've pretty much covered it. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Good Feet people over at Stonefield, Jonathan Cotton and his group, big NIL supporters of Virginia, and strong in the community, good people. Go see them if you got any kind of, you don't have to have foot problems just to have arches in your shoes and still make your walking more comfortable. And but go see those people if you're having any difficulty, or even if you're not. They can make your walking a lot more comfortable. Also, the Aberdeen Barn, Virginia's finest steakhouse. Can't beat it. Atmosphere, the food, service, tremendous. Right there, conveniently located, not too far from all the facilities over at UVA, and a great Wahoo atmosphere. Roback, local sportswear, activewear company for men and women's, come out with a new spring line with all kinds of dazzling fashion and colors that will make you shine on the golf course or anywhere else you're showing off. But look at their ad on our website and click on the ad, make your order, click on the code Jerry and get 20% off of your first order, which is pretty generous cut rate there for you. But we want to thank all those great sponsors for jumping on board and allowing us to do our podcast, which we're picking up a lot of steam, Chris. We've had a ton of people listening to the podcast. I've looked at the numbers over the past several weeks, and I guess we're doing something right because people are listening. And thanks for your input as well.
That's right. I love the fact that the folks are tuning in, and boy, I got to tell you, I think the reason why, Jerry, is these are the two guys. Humbly speaking about ourselves here, we're telling you what's happening before it happens. I mean, we've been breaking some news lately, so go to JerryRatcliffe.com, go to AugustaFreePress.com, literally for the latest in Virginia athletics news, and I'll sign off for us. This has been a great show. Been a lot of fun to do this, and look forward to talking to you again next week.